Welcome back, guys. We are up to our fourth video now on the DBQ, walking our way through each component. In our last video, we covered our first paragraph. We went through contextualization. We were setting the stage for your prompt. We went through your thesis, also known as a claim, where you make a defensible claim that you're going to back up in your body paragraphs. And that is what we're going to do next. So we got the first paragraph down. We know this. We know how to do it. What do we do in our body paragraphs? That's the big question. Now, in a normal DBQ, you would probably have about 3 body paragraphs, typically. That's about what you'd have time to write. Now, we're not doing a typical DBQ. For the year 2020, we are doing a streamlined, shortened version. Only 45 minutes, 5 documents. My guess is 2 body paragraphs would probably be what you're shooting for. I think one body paragraph is just not enough to do everything you have to do. I think 2, you can do it. 3 would probably be too much and too little time. If you can do it, fine, but 2 body paragraphs probably what you're going to be shooting for. Now, just like we looked at the first paragraph, our body paragraphs are going to have kind of a structure to them. Each body paragraph is going to begin with a topic sentence. You need to have something that relates back to the prompt, back to your thesis. Think of it as almost like a mini thesis statement, a thesis statement specifically for that particular paragraph. Remember, in your thesis, you're making a defensible claim. You're trying to say that this is what happened, and you're going to back it up with facts. And the body paragraphs is where you do that backing up of your thesis, of your claim. And so with your topic sentence, it needs to go directly back to the thesis. It's a particular component of the thesis. Most thesis statements will probably have a couple of different categories built in. You're going to discuss A, B, and C, or just A and B, and this would be the A. This is going to talk about A. The next body paragraph would talk about B, and so forth. That's what I mean by categories. Now, in terms of what's actually in the body paragraph after the topic sentence, is you're going to have a mixture of different things. You have a couple of different things you have to do to earn those points for this, for the DBQ. So in your body paragraphs, you're going to be doing a couple of different things. You might be describing the content of your documents. You might be using your documents to support your thesis. You might be doing some HIP analysis. You might be providing evidence beyond the documents, outside information is what I like to call it. You're not necessarily doing all of these things in one body paragraph, but you're going to have to do these things in your 2 body paragraphs. So again, it's going to have a mixture. We're going to look at some examples in a little bit. So let's go back to the diagram here. So what does it mean to describe the content of at least 2 documents? Remember, you're going to be doing this for at least 2 documents, 2 of 5. You have to describe the content. What does it actually look like? Well, we looked at the content of these documents in the very first video. But what would it look like in the actual writing? Well, here are some examples of acceptable and unacceptable uses of the content to support your argument. Acceptable uses. Charles Inglis used reason to note that the colonies would be unable to sustain themselves without British support because the colonies don't make enough money through agriculture and commerce. That's great, right? This is what he was talking about, the lack of money that the colonies had, and he didn't know where the money was going to come from. That's what they've described, and that's how they're going to use this to support their argument. Now, obviously, we don't see the thesis because this is just one sentence of an entire essay, but I think we can infer this is relating back to their claim that they made. He claimed, this is number 2, he claimed only man himself can direct his own actions and decisions, not the rule of any legislative authority or man. These ideals, of course, contradict the essence of colonialism. Great stuff. Now, they did something here that's really important. They have parenthetically cited the document. This is great for you to keep track of how many documents you're using. It's also great to assist the reader in letting them see which documents you're covering. You always want to be nice to your reader because they're determining your grade after all. So I think it's a great idea to do this parenthetical documentation they have here. If you don't go for this route, at least address the author. That way they know what documents you're using. But you always want to be nice to your readers. I think this is probably the best route to go. You can still use the person's name, of course, but definitely cite the document. All right, unacceptable uses of content. Charles Inglis brought to point The economic unfairness that if it weren't for the limitations set before them, they would be better off financially, but the Europeans were taking everything. As it says here, this statement misconstrues the content of the document. According to document 4, this is our second unacceptable. According to document 4, Quaker leaders are saying that the colonies should stay loyal to Britain because of the commercial interests colonies get. The commentary on this is that this statement mistakenly gives the reason for Quaker opposition to the revolutionaries reflected in the document as commercial, when in fact it was religious. So you've got to understand the documents. You can't use the content of a document acceptably if you don't understand the content, right? So this is just someone misinterpreting the document, and that, of course, is they're not going to earn the point for doing this. This is why I always suggest doing this for more than the number of documents they say. So if they say do this for 2 documents, do this for 3, do this for 4, do this for all 5 if you have time. Because if you make a mistake, you don't want that to hurt your ability to earn these points, right? You can have one mistake document if the other 2 are correct. So always try to go beyond just the bare minimum simply to cover yourself if you make a mistake, which you'll do. I mean, you're human. You only have 45 minutes. You're going to make mistakes. All right, so that's describing the content. That's one of the things you might be doing in your body paragraph. What about using the documents to support your thesis? What would that look like? Well, let's take a look. Now, before we do, though, we're going to be doing this for at least 2 or 4 documents. So if I'm using 2 documents to support my argument, my thesis, I'm going to get 1 point. If I can do this for 4 documents, 4 out of 5, I'm going to get 2 points. So definitely go for 4. Hey, go for 5 in case you make a mistake, and you'll still get the 4, and you'll get your 2 points. You want your 2 points. Yeah, every point counts, right? Every point counts. All right, so what does it look like to acceptably support your argument development with documents? Well, many factors had played a part in the rise of those dissents in the colonies, but none had greater influence than the ideals of the Enlightenment. Central to the opposition of the taxes lied in the idea of not taxation without representation. To be taxed by a parliament an ocean away seemed not only absurd but ridiculous. Enlightenment ideals of personal freedom and choice in an individual began to spread throughout the colonies. People like Sam Adams, who led the radical group Sons of Liberty, began to challenge the authority of man. He claimed only man himself can direct his own actions and decisions, not the rule of any legislative authority or man. Notice he's given us our parenthetical documentation. This shows strong corroboration of evidence to support a larger argument. Great stuff, right? This is gold. You want to do this. What do you not want to do? These 2. Also, there were people on the fence. Many religious leaders just wanted peaceful harmony. Document 4. Hey, they cited a document at least, right? However, many were forced to choose sides. In the case of the revolution, violence usually won against nonviolence. So that was how many colonists thought. All right, commentary. This attempt to use a piece of evidence to back an assertion is too general. Too general. This is something you see a lot where you're just barely scratching the surface, and that's not going to earn you a point. You got to dig deep. This statement was indicative of an entire essay that lacked a complex and cohesive argument. In other words, they were just writing to write. They had no structure. It was just words on a page they had to throw down to fill some space. And I know we've all been there, but you don't want to go down that road. All right, number 2. Those colonists who wanted independence from the mother country, i.e. England, believed that they should have the freedom to leave a society that has intolerable oppression, whether it be civic or religious, document 3. In addition, they also believed that this society was unjust, document 7, and forced them to take action into something they didn't believe in for their own well-being, document 5. These colonists wanted their freedom as a way to pursue their happiness. Okay. The premise of the paragraph is not complex, for it is simply mirroring sentiments contained in the documents, and the discussion of the documents is superficial. So, superficial, general, we see this again a lot. Basically, all they're doing is paraphrasing and sometimes outright quoting the documents. They're not actually giving any analysis of the documents. that's not going to earn you a point. That is not supporting your argument with the documents. That's just quoting from the documents. Not going to cut it. All right, so we have done describing the content. We have done using documents to support your thesis. In the next video, we're going to look at HIP analysis one more time. We're going to look at some good uses of this and some questionable uses of this. And that's where we're going with the next video.